Well. Look at the screen completely filled with some talented folks smiling. And this is, I think, the second last session before we go to the thank you note and the networking space at the first day of Unicon. But I just want to also, I see 34 people who have joined in for the session. I want to make sure that you all can hear us clearly, see us well. Just let's bring out our GIF games in the chat. Justin, Colleen, Jessy, Joe, Prateeka, you folks as well. How are you feeling today? Let's answer it via GIF in the chat. I am also gonna just try and do this. I see a lot of excitement that people are putting here in the chat. Shubham and Sunena as well. I see some dancing. Okay, we're definitely going to try and make this a really fun and exciting and something that you all can like dance on. So that's definitely the hope that we're doing for this. But without taking much time, because I know we have a power pack panel and we only have 45 minutes. I am actually going to have a very difficult job to do here because there's so much that we want to talk about this topic, but we only have 45 minutes. In fact, like I can go one-on-one with each one of these folks for 45 minutes. Like I would do like a 45-minute session with Justin, Colleen, Jessy, Joe, Prateeka, all of these folks. So we're definitely going to try and make sure we take as many audience questions as well. So please feel free to put in any of your questions about the topic in the Q&A tab. We'll also constantly keep moderating and seeing the GIFs and the emojis that you folks are going to put in the chat. But to begin this, and I wanted to make sure that I don't consume a lot of time in the first half introducing each of the panelists. So I have a very interesting question that I want to ask. And Justin, I'm going to put you on the spot for this one. What is one thing that nobody can find about you on the internet? What's something that people would not know about you easily from the internet?
So I was in a metalcore band when I was in high school. How about that one? What do we think of that one? Yeah, that's true.
So the tricky thing about this is we would never really know if this is true or not. But we're hoping.
I can confirm.
It's true. Yeah, Joe knows. He's seen the pictures.
Super. Okay. Joe, what about you? What is one thing that nobody can find about you online?
I was Daddy Warbucks in a school production of Annie where I wore a bald cap. And since it was high school and I hadn't hit my growth spurt yet, Annie was taller than me.
Super. Jessy, what about you? What's something that people won't find about you online easily?
I mean, you got to dig, right? So I was a theater girl for ever. So I had to audition to get into my middle school and my high school and my college. I was very, very involved in theater, acting and directing. And I don't really do that at all anymore, but I still love it. So that's something that you really have to dig to find.
Yeah, wow. Are there any of these clips or YouTube videos about some of the performance that you have done in your childhood?
No, those have been scrubbed. Those are gone.
Okay. Colin, what about you? What's something that people won't find about you online easily?
That I have naturally blonde eyebrows. You won't find it anywhere.
Okay. Prateeka, over to you. What's something that people won't find about you on the internet easily?
I think anything on Facebook, I'm glad it's gone. But yeah, when I was 13, I used to think I'm really good at coding and life hadn't hit me yet. So I'm so glad that's like at the past.
Super. Okay. Now this is great because I wanted to make sure that, of course, all the people who are attending this session, you can just like hit them up on Google, like just go search Justin, Colleen or Joe or any of these folks, and you will find tons of things about them on LinkedIn and across the different internet social media platforms. But this is great just to get to know them outside of work as well. Talking about the topic, right? I mean, finding the authentic fit between brands and creators. All of us have been at some point or constantly been into this phase where we are connecting with brands when we are trying to crack a deal. We're helping other creators to just negotiate with a particular brand and all of these multiple things that are involved in this. But for somebody who's just starting out, and I'm sure we might have people in the audience who are full-time creators, part-time creators, folks who just want to get into the creator economy. Um, how would we want to like explain to them is does everybody have to go for brand sponsorships and brand partnerships? Um, Joe, I'm gonna start this question with you because we were chatting about this backstage. Uh, but what do you think? Do everybody has, if they are running a podcast or if they're thinking about starting a podcast show, do they have to think about brand sponsorships and partnerships since day zero?
So I will say that if you are starting a podcast, you should think about how you're going to monetize from day zero, right? Like people say, don't even worry about monetization until after you launch. No, that's like saying don't think about how you're gonna design your house until the frame is built or whatever, right? Um so I think you should think about monetization. I don't think while most people want sponsorships because that is the most visible sort of monetization method for podcasting, I think there are other approaches to it. So you can try like affiliate links. That one hasn't worked for me, but it works well for some. You can go with a premium content model where you offer a community and then like extra educational content. I've seen work really well for the podcasters I work with. Or if you are a solo creator and you offer client services or products, then you can use your podcast as a way to establish your own authority and sell your own products and services there. I think that is a often overlooked method of monetizing a podcast.
Got it. Justin, do you want to add some bit to this?
Yeah, I totally disagree with Joe. No, just kidding. Joe and I are friends. Yeah, so I mean, I think that at the end of the day, when it comes to sponsors and when you should start thinking about it, the story I like to tell is that when my wife and I first started on YouTube back in 2009, you literally could not make money. There was no partner program, right? And so we kind of call ourselves the OG creators, like all of us coming up back in the day, like it was a hobby always back in, there was thinking about starting a business that wasn't in the parlance. But things are so much different now with creators, the kind of the next generation of creators who are rightfully so thinking about monetization so much earlier, and it's so much more normalized. It's destigmatized now to charge your worth and sell products directly to your audience and do sponsorships and all that stuff too, which I think is a really good thing. And so to echo Joe's point, like I think it absolutely behooves you to sit and think, okay, like if I am going to start creating content on the internet, what is my business model going to look like? Because I think one of the things that contributes most to burnout when it comes to creators is you just feel like you're on this endless slog. You're on the content hamster wheel, you're battling the algorithms, and especially if you don't have income to show for it, you just throw your hands up and give up. And so I think that's why it's important to start thinking a lot more concertedly about money earlier on, because hopefully it can start to supplement your strategy in a way that won't make you give up too soon.
So I think we have heard two important keywords. One is like from day zero, start thinking about monetization, and then the word burnout also came into picture. And Colleen, you have worked with tons of creators in your journey, and I think I want to know from you what is, let's say, the ideal way of how creators should structure their, let's say, everyday lifestyle. Because of course you can start to think about monetization from the day one itself, but what's an ideal way that doesn't lead to burnout? So how about you just suggest us what are some ways to manage your time better, maybe do your content production better, how to hire a team, and some of those aspects as to how creators can really do this well without burning themselves out.
Yeah, I think a lot of creators get into it because they're excited about the flexibility of a schedule and being their own boss. But what we also don't talk about is that they're the CEO, the CMO, the CTO, the CFO, every role they are as that content creator, right? And so it's actually the opposite mindset to take on, is actually take on the mindset of as if you had a 9-to-5 job, and create those calendar blocks in your day so you can have that moment, your lunch break, to like get outside, have a moment, so you aren't in this constant hamster wheel of just creating content, editing, posting, creating content, editing, posting, because you're going to forget about the whole other business side of things, right? So we always tell creators that, hey, treat it like a 9-to-5, because you won't actually burn out, even though that's probably the reason you got into it, because you don't want a 9-to-5. But in your mindset, as you're planning, say, from 9 to 10 today, I'm actually going to do my finances. I'm going to think about separating my personal business expenses. Then from 10 to 11, I'm going to create content. From 11 to noon, I'm actually going to take a break. I got to go for a walk, get out, and then go edit, come back in and edit. So structure like a 9-to-5, even though you joined this job, you created this job to get out of the 9-to-5.
Yeah, I think it's more about how you like structure the day and like schedule it for yourself. But that definitely makes sense. I think we should have the independence, but also have the structure and discipline on an everyday basis. Jessy, I want to ask you about something that we were just chatting before we started the session, which is about B2B creators. And I have been in the SaaS ecosystem for quite some time. And I know how we collaborate often with a lot of influencers on LinkedIn and Twitter and across YouTube as well. And how that has become like an important acquisition as well as the growth strategies for a lot of brands out there. How to be a B2B creator, and what really like defines or categorizes who is a B2B creator?
So step 1, you have to be a big nerd. Step 2 is you have to be comfortable with the uncomfortable, because most of the B2B creators that I know, I'm one of them, I consider myself one of them, like we're not like we don't think of ourselves as like an influencer. Like an influencer is like a fashionista, somebody that does their makeup. Like, it's the influencers that I admire on Instagram or TikTok or whatever. And like, I'm someone who part of my identity is wrapped up in being like a successful businesswoman. Like that's who I aspire to be. And I guess like when I first started out in this journey of trying to be more comfortable with this, like I didn't know how to reconcile that, where I'm like, I feel like founders need to be comfortable on social and have a social presence in order to like grow their business. But that's not the influencers that I see online. So where do I fit into that? So you briefly mentioned LinkedIn, and I've become obsessed with LinkedIn, and it feels like the space for me, like the place for me, like sure, I post on other platforms, but I feel like those places are because I kind of have to, or I just do, and I play the game. But LinkedIn is like this cool place where it feels very natural. It feels like I can converse and like just share ideas and like really get into the weeds about what I'm passionate about, which is about like marketing and influencers, and we can challenge each other, others' ideas, and lift each other up professionally. And so I think that like beyond nerding out about all of that stuff, it's finding a place where, there are other people focused on B2B and other people to, to support and grow with. That is one difference that I've also kind of observed, is that influencers, it tends to be like all about them. And I mean that, respectfully, but it's like what they're wearing, what they're doing. I idolize them. And sort of in this B2B space that I really enjoyed playing with or playing in, which is like on LinkedIn, it's about supporting each other. I find that like I'll repost stuff, I'll, reshare a newsletter and share my thoughts on top of it, things like that. So I don't know. I love the B2B space. I think it's very much growing. We were talking about, partnerships beforehand, and, we do partnerships, myself individually, myself at WIIM. There's a successful, slightly different career path to be had in that interesting B2B space. So I just want to make sure like everyone's aware. PSA.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely come back to this because this is an interesting topic and a growing trend, that a lot of folks would be interested into this, and kind of also maybe just segments into the later section for us about how to be a part-time creator, how while you are full-time employed somewhere, but you can still be creating content. Prateeka, I'm going to ask you something, and I know it's going round robin right now, but what are some strategies that you ensure that these brand partnerships remain authentic? I think it shouldn't feel like, okay, this is how do I put this? How can I make it look authentic apart from just saying that this is an ad or a sponsored post? What are some ways that you really um, just make it look like, okay, organic and authentic?
That's a great question. And I think I have a tip that I tell creators when I'm designing campaigns, and I tell them we welcome constructive feedback. Any constructive criticism that you have about the brand, tell us so we can improve. And if it is mild, and again, this is curated, we do encourage them include something that they don't like about the product also in the review. So it comes across as authentic. I think right now it's the stereotypical influencer gasp, that is becoming a little bit notorious. Like when you hold a product and oh my God, it's the best product in the world. It's my favorite product. And that type of thing no longer works. People see through it.
I think we lost the audio, but we'll come back to this. Let me just text Pratika again. Justin, I think one thing that I wanted to know from you is, and I know we talked about think about monetization from day one. Pratika, can you hear us?
Yes, yes. Sorry, I don't
Okay,
know what
yes,
happened.
sorry. You were talking about let's not make it look like, oh, I love this product. So yeah, continue from there.
Yes, I have explicitly told influencers that if you don't like it, don't say it. Say things you mean. People read through that. People are smart. So, and if there's something that you think could be better, say that as well. Be authentic. Say whatever you want. Again, I would still like to preface this. It's still a brand campaign. It still goes through us. So if there's something majorly wrong with it, that goes to the feedback department, not online. So I still want to put that disclaimer out there. But yes, that is something we've started encouraging a lot.
Super. I think that also
Right.
just builds more trust with the audience. But yeah, Colleen, if you
Oh,
want
I
to
was
add
going to
something.
add something to that too, because what she said really resonates with me is, a marketer is and this is taking me a while to get to this point, but with the creators we work with at Juice, we give up creative control. We really do give them carte blanche to create the content they want within, of course, we just give them the guardrails, right? We're a financial institution, so there's things they can and cannot say. But after that, and they check those boxes, I'm like, go for it. And I know this is like very uncomfortable for brands to do. And believe me, I've worked at many brands where it took me a while to convince everyone, like, just let them do their thing. But that is, if I can preach that to all marketers out there, I'm like, then the content performs. It really does. So
So
there you
true.
go.
Like nobody knows their audience better than them. Like that is what they
Yeah.
do. I'll be telling them what to do.
Yeah, I think that also just builds authenticity, builds trust, and then it, of course, compounds over time. I actually also want to, Colleen, after I ask Justin this question, I want to ask you about how creators can also be marketers, but we'll come to that. Justin, something that I wanted to ask you was we talked about think about monetization from day zero and day one. But why do brand deals feel so hard to get? I mean, a lot of creators also talk about this that that's where the biggest pie of revenue is, but something about it feels really hard. Is there a framework that you suggest creators to follow? That okay, this is how you can simplify it, or
Yeah,
first of all,
yeah,
why does it
absolutely.
feel that brand deals are difficult to get?
So first of all, I think yes, you're right. Like the biggest pie or the biggest driver of revenue for a lot of creators is partnerships, and yet number one, a lot of creators didn't get into this thinking I want to like, be a business person, right? It's because it was for the love of the craft, right? And so the prospect of like having to do these kind of like business deals, business partnerships for a lot of people is just like, like they don't, it's like, it's a means to an end. Like it's not their first choice of like way in which they could make money. I think that's one reason why it just feels kind of hard to get. The second thing is that, three things actually. The second thing is there's this general pervasive attitude that everything's just so saturated now. There's so many creators. It's so hard to stand out. Like everyone, unless I'm creating, posting 3 times a day on TikTok, like it's going to be impossible for me to stand out. And what I talk about a lot is number one, that's not true at all. Like there's tons of creators who are blowing up and, making huge names for themselves every day. And probably the reason that you're feeling like it's so saturated is because you're not talking about anything that people really want to follow or listen to. Frankly, at the end of the day, I'm just going to be honest, like you're saying the same thing that everyone else is. And so really figuring out what is my unique angle on this? What is my niche? What am I just, I talked about in the keynote today, like really figuring out your niche. Like there's a very, very small percentage of people who could be a true generalist and find traction. I really believe that. So that's number 2. And then the third thing is that the reason they feel so hard to get is because you're working with the brand once and then literally never talking to them again. And the reason that you're never talking to them again is because you're scared that the campaign didn't go well. And so what I really say and tell people is like, you have to lean into this discomfort and you're either going to win or learn. You're going to say, hey, how did the campaign go? And they're either going to say amazing. And that's your lane to pitch them on the next deal. Or if they say, hey, it didn't go so well, it didn't drive the amount of traction or sales or conversions or whatever we were hoping, you say, thank you so much for letting me know. That's so interesting. I'd love to dig into that. Let's figure out together why that happened so we can improve for the next iteration. And so I think it's this really, really important. I have what I call my sponsorship wheel, which is my 8-step methodology of working with brands. And the most important thing is it's a wheel. It's not a horizontal like line when you work with the brand and then it drops off a cliff at the end. It's like, no, you have to pitch them on collaborating again right when you finish. So I think that's how I look at this stuff.
I also feel this might require certain skill sets, right? Like maybe somebody is an introvert and then they're not that good at negotiating or just constantly maintaining that relationship. So maybe you can hire a team member to handle these part. But even if there are a few limitations, Joe, if you want to pick this up and answer, what are some ways that I can monetize my podcast without brand deals? Like if I don't want to go that route, what are some ways that I can monetize my podcast?
Yeah, so I think everything Justin said is great. First of all, like I was on the verge of losing a longtime sponsor, and then we kind of figured out how we can make it better for them, and we had the best campaign after that. So I just want to echo what Justin says there. I, like Justin, enjoy acronyms, and so I have a SMASH framework for monetizing your podcast, right? The first S is sponsorship, right? But the M is memberships. So this is where you can offer, like I said earlier, premium content or bonus content to your true fans, right? So people love behind the scenes stuff. How do you put the show together? How did you book that big guest? I just spoke to an Emmy award-winning producer on my podcast, and you better believe I'm going to put out a bonus episode for members on how we landed that and how he won his Emmy. And if you're worried about the size of your audience, you could always, again, offer like this educational content, right? 78% of people listen to podcasts to learn something new. So lean into that and offer more value. People will pay to accelerate their education. A is affiliates. So this is a strategy you'd really have to lean into. You can't just like throw an affiliate link in your show notes and hope for the best. I would say pick 2 or 3 products you really love and almost treat them like sponsors for your show, right? Talk about product X and mention an easy to speak link so that people can go to it. Of course, mention that it is an affiliate link. But I think that could be a good strategy if it's one that you decide to really like go all in on. The second S in SMASH is selling. So you're selling your own products or services, which means you're probably not going to have sponsors, but you're going to position yourself as the expert and talk about the problems that your ideal clients have and how your product or service solves them. And then the H is helping. So this is coaching, consulting, and courses. I really love this one because with coaching, you can show and tell on your podcast, right? You can make public some of your coaching calls. I just did this with my my podcast about podcasting. I had a coaching call with somebody. She said I could publish it, and that's doing extremely well. It's been recommended around the podcasting space, and I just landed a coaching client yesterday because of it. So a really great way to show people you really know what you're talking about.
Makes sense. And I'm going to remember that smash. And also, Dan is putting GIFs in the chat about it. Jesse, I think an important topic, and I want to make sure that I don't miss out on this, is about how can like brands be more inclusive when it comes to collaborating with diverse set of creators. I think that's something that we should maybe as influencer marketing companies or creator economy marketing institutes, we should also like take care of that. But how can brands really, from the first point at the project, think about including diverse creators in their campaigns?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I think that it was top of mind a couple years ago, like 2020, 2021, peak of the pandemic, and people were really excited to see some change happen. I think that if you ask a lot of people who are in some of those like minority groups, like how things are going 3 years later, I think a lot of them will say they've just been a bit disappointed that the momentum hasn't continued. As a white woman, I think it's probably best that I just sort of like share what I've heard from other people. And some things that I've heard that I think sound really promising, really effective. Number one, you need to have people at your company that look like the influencers you're hiring. If it's like all a bunch of like white guys, white women, whatever it is, but it doesn't look diverse. And diversity, by the way, is not just ethnic. Like it's, people in wheelchairs. It's, different religions. It's like sexual identity, sexual orientation, et cetera, et cetera. But like, I think that one way to like really truly get the most out of having a diverse population of creators is by having people at the top who understand them really well. To be able, because like at the end of the day, influencer marketing is all about storytelling, in my opinion. And like for those stories to really be fully flushed out and like the best that they can be, you got to have people who sort of like speak your language, like get your story and can like really know maybe the questions to ask to get the best story out into the world. And so have it not just check a box, like have it really like, hiring from within to be able to reflect the diversity of influencers that you want to ultimately hire and to like appreciate the power of each of those groups. Because look, we're all business people at the end of the day too, and we're trying to sell products or services or what have you. And like, there is so much power in community broadly. And so really leaning into each of these individual communities, like there's so much money to be made, but it has to be done right. And of course, like that's the $1 million question, which we probably don't have time to like truly dig into. It's like, how do you do it right? But I do think those couple things hopefully will get people on the right track.
Probably, I hope maybe you can put this up on LinkedIn if you ever get time in the coming few days. If you can answer this or write a post about this on LinkedIn, we would definitely follow on that post. But I think I want to cover an important next topic. And today, everywhere on the internet, AI is a buzzword that's across. And Prateeka, I think at CrowdPad, you folks are building something really innovative. And
Yes.
I also want to get perspective from a very analytical point of view as to how the facilitation of AI generated content is helping boost this brand and creator partnerships in a very broad sense. But uh, just walk us through about what you folks are building and how it's facilitating this.
Yes, I think I'm gonna just take an example everybody already knows because I think everybody gets to AI jargon, it gets very confusing. So when industrialization was happening, washing machines were introduced. It apparently cut down domestic household work from 6 hours to 40 minutes, and that let women get to work. So people were wondering if the introduction of machines is going to end up in loss of jobs, but actually people were able to do things they actually wanted to because other things were getting automated. So that is, in my opinion, how AI will help creators as well, is that take all the chunk of work that we hate doing as creators, let AI take care of that, and creators can actually focus on things they truly enjoy doing. It gives you a lot of hours in the day. So yes, AI can do a lot right now, but you don't have to get into everything. If video editing is something you do not enjoy, there's a tool for that. If voiceovers is something you feel insecure about, there's a tool for that. So it depends on what part of your entire loop that you want to kind of remove, and AI can take care of that. You don't have to overdo it. You just have to make sure that you focus on things you truly enjoy and make sure AI does the rest. So I think that is the right mindset to approach this with.
Super. And I'm glad that we have at least touched on this topic. If we get time towards the end, we'll come back to this. Um, but Colleen, I think the one thing that I wanted to ask, and I'm loving the questions that are going towards you, which were about discipline as a creator. And now something that I was seeing a trend, at least in India, was marketeers converting into creators and how creators were also becoming marketers. Um, what are some skill sets or let's say a Venn diagram that you see that fits in really well between these two personalities? Or how can creators really think from a marketer perspective as well? Um, just give us some thoughts, and I think I have a
Yeah.
lot of follow-ups on this.
First and foremost is knowing your target audience, right? Like that's what marketers are obsessed with. They're obsessed with knowing their audience in and out. And that translates perfectly with creators, is knowing your community in and out, knowing what resonates with them, what doesn't, knowing maybe if there's a second community you want to start marketing to and going after as a creator. And then the other thing I would say, as a marketer and as can translate to being a content creator is having a strong point of view. So I think, Justin talked about it a little bit, is like sometimes feeling like, oh, there's so many creators out there. It's such a crowded space, et cetera. But, if you have a strong point of view, which everyone does, if, you as yourself are the brand, you are the marketer, is go out with that strong point of view and the audience will follow, right? Just like if I'm marketing a brand and I'm marketing Creative Juice, making sure people know what our differentiator is as a financial, banking product for creators. So as a creator, I'm me and I have a different point of view than Jessy does. And so that will keep you in your own space, set you apart, even if you have competitors, right, that speak on similar topics as you and whatnot. It's like continue with that point of view and don't constantly try to compare yourself to others. So I'd say those are the two biggest things. I mean, I could nerd out about marketing all day, but knowing your audience and having that strong point of view and continuing down that path and not getting distracted by competitors.
Yeah. And I think I also love that topic, and we should nerd out about this maybe sometime later. And before I ask my next set of questions, we have one question by Dan here in the Q&A tab. He's asking, does anyone have any suggestions on finding the right brand fit for a creator with a unique skill? What he tends to bring to brands isn't something that they often pursue, so his efforts often fall flat. Um, and I can sense that this might be a question that probably later a lot of viewers would want to get an answer on, like when they see the recording of this, is entertainment or fashion or the D2C space is something that anybody can like easily like talk about and get brand deals. But what about maybe let's say a B2B influencer or somebody who's really in a niche content bucket? How would they sort of get brand deals, or how should they approach about this? And I'm opening this for the floor. Anybody who wants to go first and add on to this.
I mean,
I can just make it. Go ahead, Colleen. Yeah, I know. Please.
I was going to start really quick being on the other side of it. Is I love when creators reach out to me and they're like, I'm a fintech creator. I love your product. Can we do a deal? Like go after the brands you want to work with and show them why they should hire you. Like that is my favorite thing as a marketer, is when a creator reaches out to me because they fit the niche that we are marketing and they have a passion for it. And that usually 9 times out of 10, I hire them.
Yeah. Justin, you were adding something?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say super insightful, Colleen. I mean, I think people kind of call me their tough love mentor sometimes because from my perspective, like the vast majority of the times when you're a niche creator, or what most creators do when they pitch a brand is they say, hi, my name is Justin. I've got 50,000 followers. I get this many views. This is my demographics. And then most brands, not you, Colleen, clearly, but most brands, they just deleted your email because they get this message 100 times a day. It's not interesting in any way. And so my perspective is like, honestly, what's in it for the brand? That's what your pitch has to be about, is like, you have to do research, say, what is going on in their world right now? What campaigns are they running? What campaigns did they run in the past? And the first sentence of your pitch needs to say, hey, I saw a brand that you're trying to do this. My audience has an affinity for your brand or your product or whatever this is. And so I will help you accomplish your marketing objectives by sponsoring me. And so it's a positioning exercise. It's the same end result, but the most important part is it's not about you. The fact that your niche is irrelevant. How can you help the brand accomplish a business objective or get an outcome? And so if you can figure out creative ways in which your content or however you can partner with them to make that happen, that's how you get deals.
I would also add that
the same thing. Sorry, just agreeing with you, Justin. I was literally going to say it's the same thing. Hate to be like that, but brands don't care about influencers. Brands care about the audience of an influencer. So if you can show that the audience will be a good audience for them too, and show an intersection and show that there is their target audience is actually in your audience as well. That's it. You don't need to start pitching at all after that. Agreed.
I would also add that it could be about timing, right? I'll follow up with a brand. Like, I know I went through, Justin's cohort too, which confirmed my suspicions, but I'll follow up with a brand until that brand manager says never, ever email me again. And then when they get a new brand manager, I'm going to email them again. Right. And so it could be about timing and like Justin said, positioning. And I wouldn't it's not personal if they say no. Right. It's very rarely personal.
Yeah. And I think it's about, as you said, timing as well, right? Maybe they're not thinking about investing into a campaign with a particular creator at the moment. But Jessy, do you want to add something before we move on from this question?
I mean, I think everyone said it really well. I think that at the end of the day, it's how you look at it all. Because we're also talking about like burnout at the beginning of this conversation, and we're just talking about like managing your career holistically. And so I think perspective is really important, and just how you approach it. Like for me, I just love building relationships with people. And I'm like personally just like on a journey to just be more myself in a professional environment. I feel I've always kind of felt pressure. And I used to manage influencers, and so I would feel it from their perspective too, of like, okay, this is our one moment to reach out, and there's so much on the line, and we have to be this and we have to be that, and like it has to be perfect. And I've actually just found maybe it's probably a sign of age. Maybe like the older that I get, the more I'm just like, everyone just wants to know who you are as a human being, and people want to work with people that they like and that they trust. And so I just feel like if you can establish those two things with someone, your odds are like infinitely greater that you can actually build something significant together.
Yeah. And I think we're kind of like coming back to the answer that Justin gave, that, why brand deals seem so tough or difficult to crack in, but it's really about the relationship and the trust that you build. So I'm glad that, we're coming back to the same things. I have my last two questions, and I'm going to try to make sure that we stick to the time limit. And in each one of you can answer, because I'm sure all of you have worked with creators and been part of different campaigns. What is one thing or few things that are, let's say, a non-negotiable for you in a brand partnership? And you can answer this as a creator as well as, let's say, somebody who's a creator manager, talent manager, or somebody who's on the brand side. Feel free to answer from all three perspectives or any one of the perspective. Let me start with Justin. What is, let's say, one thing at least? You can answer multiple. but one thing that's like a non-negotiable for you when you do such brand partnerships?
Yeah, it has to be a win-win-win. The last win is what most people forget, which is like, okay, yeah, you're winning because you're clearly getting paid, right, as a creator. The brand is winning because they get to access your audience, which is prospective customers of their brand, obviously. But your audience has to win too. This is what everyone forgets. It's like there has to be some sort of incentive, promo code, discount code, seasonal promotions. They've never heard about the product and they love you for introducing it to them. And if that last factor is not, if it's not present in the deal, right, there's nothing like that the audience is really going to get out of it. You have to engineer that as a creator. You have to go to the brand and say, hey, I'm really excited about this, but I know you want to pay me this amount of money or whatever, but you know what? Instead of, $2K plus, 50% commission on the back end, I'm cool taking 40% as long as my audience gets a 10% discount. Like, you can engineer that. You can have that conversation with the brand because that's how you make this whole thing holistic and everyone wins.
I had never actually thought about that, but this definitely makes sense that it's a win-win-win. So definitely, everybody who's going to watch this or is watching this right now, please take a note of this.
I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do it. Yeah, I had to do it. Yeah.
Colin, what's something that's a non-negotiable for you in a brand partnership?
Yeah, honestly, I would say having the creator, well, first of all, like the shared values, which like doesn't always go in a contract, right? But like Jessy kind of pointed to is like the shared values and the trust there and making sure like that's super clear. And also, obviously, we've talked about this, but like creators understanding that their audience is their biggest asset. And so driving home that value in the contract, right? And then as a marketer, they have to use the product. Not that they have to use it through and through. They just have to use it before they create their content, right? Like even if they use it once, or else like the audience is going to call bullshit. So using the product for me is a non-negotiable. Listen, and if they don't use the product after that, like I want to know why. I want to be like, why did you not stay on, or why did you hate it? Like that's the most important feedback we can get is a creator using the product and then not using it again. It's like the why behind it, but they've got to use it before they create the content.
Joe, what's a non-negotiable for you when you're doing a brand partnership?
It's funny because I was thinking about saying like I've got to love the product to piggyback off what Colleen said. So instead, I'll do a little. Justin's got like the West Coast United States positivity. I'll bring in some of that East Coast New York negativity. A non-negotiable for me is I've had brands say like you can't say it's a sponsorship. It has to be a natural read. And for me, it has to be crystal clear to my audience that I have been paid for this placement. Because my audience, the trust that my audience has in me is more important than any amount of money that a brand can give me. And so if a brand comes to me and they say you can't say it's a sponsorship, it has to be organic and you can't act like you've been paid for it, then that's absolute. It's not going to work out.
Jessy, what about you?
So I'm thinking about this because everyone's giving really good answers. I think that I think it's professionalism. I've just been hearing so many horror stories lately that like 2023 is the year of ghosting and lack of feedback. Like you can change your mind, you can decide you don't want to partner with somebody, but like there is sort of like a fundamental, like we're all in this together. Like this is just my job. Like I would love to respectfully just like ask for feedback for why, for a response to my email, to response to my 10 emails, because you're not responding to any of them. And it's like maddening. It can really affect your bottom line, your mental health. Like seriously, like it is such a thing to just completely ghost someone. I heard someone share a story yesterday how their talent manager, they had like a $25,000 partnership for their creator. They presented it to them as if it was firmed up, and the person just absolutely ghosted them. And then months later came back as if nothing had happened and offered a new deal. And she was like, okay, we have to acknowledge what happened though, right? Because like that's even more maddening. So just like remembering the basics and the fundamentals of professionalism. you would be surprised the stories that I've heard, and just like being able to implement that into a partnership is incredibly important and will actually go a very long way.
I'm actually kind of surprised that they ghosted and then came back with a new deal. That's
Isn't that surprising? She said they came back with 2 deals, and she was like, wait a second, like, how could I trust that this one is going to go through if the other one didn't? But also, you're not even acknowledging that what happened about the first one. Like, I don't know, red flag after red flag to me. I would feel like my gut is like already in circles, like thinking about it, and I'm not even involved. I'm second, third hand. But yeah, isn't that a wild story?
They were
yeah,
probably
yeah,
sending out a lot of communication and may not even realize it went to the same person twice. Like that could have
yeah,
happened.
yeah. But yeah, Prateeka, what's a non-negotiable for you in a brand deal?
Yes, like just for context, I have managed talent before. I am now marketing and creating campaigns for brands, and I'm a small creator myself. So I feel like I do understand the 3 sides of the world. And I think one non-negotiable on all sides is the power dynamic imbalance. Like if it feels like you're not in power and you're not having a conversation, rather you're being cornered into doing things you're uncomfortable with. Now on the brand side, we've had that from larger creators, and as a small creator, I've had that from brands where they corner you into situations that feel uncomfortable. And I think it's fine to walk away at that point. Don't be in situations that don't feel right to you, because you're going to end up posting content that you're not proud of. And that doesn't help anybody at all. It's called a collaboration, not a job, for a reason. It needs to be a conversation. So I think that is for me a massive red flag right away, where somebody is just like, this is how we need things done. And that's it. Zero dialogue. That's a non-negotiable for me. I need to be able to have inputs and stuff.
Got it. And now, before I move to my last tiny question, I want to thank each one of you for making this entire conversation really, really interesting, fun, insightful, and also very engaging. I was seeing Justin and Joe constantly doing their GIF games in the chat with all our attendees. So thank you so much for that. And I've saved all the links that you folks have put in the chat. I'm gonna go and watch those videos. But thank you to each one of you and to the attendees as well for sticking for the last 45 minutes. Now, coming to the last question, and this is entirely from my personal selfish interest. Okay, I've used the first 45 minutes for the audience and for everybody else, but this is something that's for me. What's a trend that you folks are observing, or a trend spotting that you are currently seeing in the creator economy space, not just within the brand and the creator partnership and the brand deals, but something that you see is definitely going to be like a massive trend or a shift within the entire industry. And I'm also going to tell you guys why I'm asking this question. I spend a lot of time consuming newsletters, tweets, and Google alerts. I want to pick your brain and see what's the news source that you folks are doing. So, Justin, why don't we start with you? And you tell us about what's a trend that you think is going to be coming in the next few months or years.
All right, I got a hot take, and I'm probably going to piss off a bunch of people. But I believe that 99% of creators should not have managers. And I believe that, I think that it's like, for a lot of creators, they think it's like, that's the next step. Like, if I could just get on the radar of like the right person to like help take my career to the next level, they can handle all the business stuff and I'll focus on the creative stuff. And that's going to be the thing to like really impact my business. And I've been in this creative space for 15 years and I've had my fair share of horror stories. I've worked with lots and lots of people, and the creators that I have seen have the longest and healthiest careers really took it upon themselves to be the CEO of their business, take the business stuff seriously, and educate themselves around what it takes to actually have a long-term career in this industry. And so when I'm over here banging this drum, and I have a lot of mad managers in my inbox saying, well, how dare you? But I believe it's so important to just take control of this and not try to delegate. What I'm not saying is don't have a team. I have a team. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying like the actual role of running your business and understanding the economics of your revenue engine. It's so critical. And so I think we're going to see a lot more creators take more control and kind of rebuke the traditional kind of management model in favor of running it themselves.
Yeah, I'm holding myself with a follow-up question because I know I'm running out of time. But we'll definitely discuss more on this maybe sometime later. Colin, what's a trend or a observation or just a shift that you think is going to come in the coming 2 years?
Well, I know Jesse's going to love this one, but it is the rise of the creator educators, right? Like the CEOs of the creator economy, you know, being like Jessy, John Ushahi, Patty Galloway, these people that are educating creators, right? This is the new economy. The creator economy is the new economy. It's the new small business. And who are those leaders that can help the rest of the creators become successful, right? Whether that's, I mean, I agree with Justin's point. It's like hire an assistant. Don't hire someone that's going to take 20%. It's like hire the team that really helps the foundational things or take the things off your plate so you can be that CEO. And then who can you learn from, right? Like who are the current CEOs of the creator world, the creator educators like Jessy that can help this economy continue to thrive. So I think you're going to see more and more of those folks coming up and more platforms to do that, right? Like educational courses. There's going to be a masterclass, I'm sure, at some point that will be truly of how to be a content creator.
Yeah. Jessy, over to you.
Oh, I have so many opinions about what each of you said, but again, maybe we'll do a podcast about that topic for another time. So juicy, but I would say that so my world is different people from different perspectives in the creator economy, but a lot of talent managers. And I feel their concern with, the dramatic ebbs and flows of deal flow that are coming in for their creators. And so if people are hip to it and take my advice, the trend that I would like to see, at least, is that I would love to see people just monetize in new, fresh ways and not just follow the status quo of brand partnership after brand partnership for a variety of different reasons. Namely, like your audience is going to get tired of it, in my opinion, if you're just doing them over and over. And also, optimistically, there's so much more to monetize. Like if you have a community or you have a following or whatever the word is that you want to use who like looks to you and looks up to you, like they want things from you. It doesn't feel transactional. It doesn't feel slimy or salesy. Like they want those things from you. So just sort of identifying what those things are and just thinking outside the box. That's the trend I would love to see more of personally.
Joe, what about you?
I think we are on the precipice of a new age in podcast discoverability. Finding podcasts has always been really hard for people. There's no single site like YouTube. There's no algorithm like every social network. But now that YouTube is getting into podcasting, Spotify is putting a lot of their eggs in the podcasting basket and turning their podcast interface into something more like TikTok. And there's even rumors that TikTok is getting into podcasting too. I think that finding relevant podcast content is going to get a lot easier. So I would say if you want your podcast to be discoverable and ready to go, you need to be on those platforms.
Wow. Prateeka, I know it's a tough one to end the session with what you're expecting the next trends to be. But yeah, over to you.
Okay, no pressure. All right. Since we're ending, I think let me just take like more of a long-term view. Like in my opinion, the term creator might just get phased out entirely because right now I'm seeing a lot of industry professionals, doctors, lawyers, teachers wanting more social capital to gain credibility and be more approachable and be more relatable. And then on the other hand, we have creators starting their own businesses to have more financial security because, being a creator is a little bit of a it's a little bit scary because you might become a little bit obsolete at some point. It is a short-term career for a lot of industries. Like if you're talking about comedians, for example, it does phase out. So I think the gap is closing really soon. And at some point, we might just stop calling them creators. it'll be like fashion creators will probably just be called fashion educators, travel creators will probably just be called travelers, and we'll also have a lot of entrepreneurs who will boast about their social capital. So I can see a world where being a creator is not a thing anymore. Everybody just has social capital. Everybody has a bank account, a driver's license, and social capital. And that's just everyone. I
Wow.
hope that happens.
I also hope that happens because I sometimes find it difficult to categorize myself. I am a founder, I am a creator, or I'm a traveler. What all am I really doing? But
No, man. It's
yes,
all just channels. Yeah, it's all just channels where you can connect with people better. And I think that's about it.
super. But thank you so much, Prateeka. And I also want to thank each one of you, Jessy, Joe, Justin, Colleen, the Philo team, the TFC team, and everybody who's here in the audience as well for sticking by for the last 55 minutes. It's been really, really fun and insightful, at least for me. I hope you all also enjoyed listening to us. But yeah, we'll call it a close, and we hope next time we meet again and we do a longer conversation or over a podcast, and we can go all nerdy about different topics that we wanted to explore a little bit more. But thank you once again to each one of you and to the entire audience also for sticking by. Super. Thank you guys. Take care.